This is one of the best audio production and mixing courses. How to buy full lessons, read the description or the first pinned comment. Meters, we're gonna compare RMS versus loops versus VU. There is sort of a bug with loops meters, and if you don't know it, you all the time measure your levels incorrectly. Goals of compressor, you wouldn't believe what you can find out from just a list of the goals of a compressor. We're gonna learn disadvantages of a compressor. People always claim compressor do something better to your sound, but I'm gonna explain disadvantages of a compressor. Only understanding disadvantages, you finally know how to use it properly. We're gonna discuss people like Schmidt, who completely against compression, and what people don't understand when they criticize compression. Another reason to apply compressor is to color your sound. To color. Some compressors literally have so good coloration and so nice tone that people sometimes throw those compressors not even for the sake of dynamics control. They may apply like minimal compression, 1-2 dB, the most neutral ratio, low ratio, neutral attack and release, just for the sake of getting some coloration, let's say from output transformer. Or for example, as I already mentioned, LA to A sparkly high harmonics. Or CL1B, this like very interesting sort of a grain in a good way sort of coloration. In pop music, Dua Lipa, Rihanna, mixers of those singers actually apply CL1B minimally, not even for the sake of dynamics control, mostly for extra juice, extra color to the vocal. And then they use secondary compressor to control dynamics. This is how song Adele Rolling in the Deep was mixed. CL1B, just for the sake of coloration and little dynamics, like 1 dB compression, and then above it 1176 with like full 5-7 dB of compression. So as you see, compressors can be used just to color your sound. A lot of people think coloration is just the sake of juicier, less juicy. Not always, because sometimes you just hear this instrument more. Sometimes without this coloration, you just simply don't hear the instrument. You apply the sound, and it's just more audible in the mix, more clear in the mix, because you just occupy special frequencies by some harmonics, which you boosted by the compressor. Coloration in your mix. A lot of people nowadays completely don't understand coloration. I really met these opinions for so many times when, again, people play smart ass. I quote those people, "I'm the smartest one, everybody is stupid. You should never use any dirty plugins, who cares, it's all outdated, use only digital plugins." These people don't even understand that you boost actually harmonics even by digital plugins. Even digital compressor boosts harmonics. This is pure sine wave. As you can see, no harmonics, no saturation, right? People say, "Oh, everybody is stupid who use analog emulations. Use just FabFilter Pro C2, pure digital clear, which doesn't put any harmonics to your sound." And people think if plugin is digital and not based on some classic, then it doesn't create any harmonics, and harmonics will not be boosted, not gonna be created. Are you sure? As you can see, no harmonics to the right side of the main tone, right? I activate Pro C2. Oh my god, what is it? Don't you think it's a harmonic structure? And this is what harmonics with this compressor boosts. Look, I change release and we have new structure of harmonics. I change attack. Now as you can see, third harmonic and fourth harmonic not too far from each other, but once I change attack, we put third harmonic now much more prominent than fourth. Do you think it's about aliasing? No, it's a real structure of harmonics. I can filter aliasing, I can activate oversampling. And as you can see, the same structure of harmonics, even with oversampling, just those little artifacts disappear as aliasing. So don't tell me, use just digital compressors, they don't color your sound. They color your sound. They color your sound even from the other point of view. For example, any compressor, as you know, with quieter and louder parts. If on the frequency spectrum you had, for example, fundamental tone, main mathematical harmonics, noises, other harmonics, like string noises and stuff, compressor make louder parts quieter and quieter parts louder. Eventually, there is pretty high chance that you're gonna exaggerate some harmonics by this, because those quietest parts of your sound becomes more prominent in the mix because of compression. because compressor always make louder parts quieter, but due to normalization requirements, quieter parts also go louder. So you can increase quieter parts of your note which contain other harmonics, let's say brighter harmonics, louder. Even if compressor completely didn't boost any harmonics, it anyway takes existing harmonics of your instrument in quieter zones and make them louder. What you're talking about, digital compressors color your sound. Also, coloration actually why is beneficial, because it's like you're a chef and you cook in a dish. You put potato, tomato, some different stuff, and then when there are different ingredients with different tastes, it's nice. You have, imagine you have just 3 ingredients of the same kind, and you try to put them, and then you try to isolate by taste or by the look what is what. You're gonna have first instrument, you're gonna have second instrument, you're gonna have third instrument with exactly the same coloration. Tell me, where second instrument here? You don't see it. It's not contrasty. It's like nice picture with a good contrast and nice colors when you can really isolate different objects due to their color, how 3D they are, shadows, semitones and stuff, Now imagine, this is first instrument. You color second instrument completely differently. And third instrument, you color completely differently. Tell me where the second instrument is. Red one. Do you see it? You see it, right? Coloration helps if you just apply it, not too crazy, and smartly only where it's needed. Another absolutely mind-blowing concept, to be honest, pretty disappointed in audio engineering world because I made a video about this separately, and a lot of people didn't even agree with this. It shows how low level of knowledge people literally have in audio. It literally disappointed me, So compressor is a Q. Compressor is a Q. And the most smart-ass people said, what are you talking? Compressor is a Q. You should check dictionary. What are you talking about? You stupidest in the world. From my experience, the most stupid people always blame other people that other people are the stupidest, Compressor, of course, is a Q. I already even mentioned it today. If on a late way I change sidechain filter, compressor start decreasing upper mid-range more than in the other setting. So by specific settings on the compressor, I literally can change frequency response of the instrument. Some compressors literally tend to minimize lows and boost a bit more upper mid, like 1176 compressors over there. Sometimes it's the way what exactly you exaggerate in your instrument. Let me explain. For example, typical note of any instrument look like this. Transient is some spike. It lasting from like 10 to 20 milliseconds potentially. It's high frequency. They are usually shorter waveforms and more high frequency. It's like this, like tsk, tsk in the beginning of the note. Let's say it can be the sound of a guitar plectrum. This like tsk, tsk on acoustic guitar or electric guitar. And then note vibrates making much lower frequencies, and those waveforms much longer. They look like this. Now imagine, depending on settings on your compressor, for example, you apply long attack. If your compressor has long attack, it means it doesn't influence the beginning of a note as much as the middle of a note and the end of a note when you have long release as well. Which means eventually this part will go down in volume. Eventually the whole instrument becomes quieter in the mix, and you won't restore the volume because you literally don't hear this instrument anymore. You normalize output volume after compression, like this, and eventually you get transient louder than sustain. As I already explained, transient can contain much more mid frequencies, while sustain may contain much more low frequencies. So high frequencies and mid frequencies in your instrument seems like more prominent right now, and sustain, which contains mostly low frequencies, actually go down in volume in comparison to the beginning of a note. That's why compressor literally can make your drums brighter, if your drum at least initially had something bright in the beginning of this note. So compressor obviously becomes like equalizer. Some even classic compressors was used on some specific instruments exactly for the reason how they saturate the sound. Some compressor even put special harmonics in some special places, let's say like LA2A. Compressor, even though it's a worm and tube compressor, it still puts plenty of high sparkly harmonics specifically over there. There is even this debate that Universal Audio has these channel strips. I have in my second Studio B one of these. It seems like the same compressor like LA2A, but it's fake. It's not really LA2A. It's an optical compressor, yes. It works similar to LA2A, but it has one tube less. And this one tube is the whole difference. It makes much more sparkle to LA2A than to this compressor, actually. So LA2A is more brighter kind of equalizer than this compressor, you know what I mean? Which is a bit more neutral, less bright, less sparkly on the top. Sometimes you have just simply noisy sample in the end of your drum, or let's say just noisier tails due to different reasons. Maybe some noise on the back, or somebody blended white noise when they created sound design for some preset on some synthesizer. Maybe you recorded drums and a lot of spills you hit in the snare drum, and cymbals vibrating, making a bit like shimmery high end in the tail of your snare drum. Let's say you have electric guitar with super bright guitar amplifier. You also blended some bright, sparkly reverb, spring reverb, to the sound of your guitar note. This like classic 1960s, 1950s Fender amplifiers. Maybe you even play it smoothly, you know, maybe you don't have too bright spike in the beginning of your note, but eventually when your note fades out, you have this like so-called like noise floor, you know, it's all these like bright harmonics with this metallic shimmery sort of reverb and all this noise from the cables in the end of your note of your guitar. Now you compress with a short attack, you have short release, your compressor mostly influences only the beginning of your note like this. Overall volume drop down, you need to compensate, you restore lost volume, and tail of your note becomes much more prominent, and all this green noise on this picture becomes more prominent, and this noise is bright, and your guitar note becomes brighter. So compressor in some way is equalizer. Another example why you need to know all these next topics which I'm gonna provide to be an expert in dynamics is because of back in the days when I was a beginner, I was probably the most dedicated person in the world. I didn't sleep nights. The only job I had, audio engineering. I worked like 6 hours a day, and then I had nothing to do other than audio, you know, in my 20s and stuff. And I was not sleeping at night, day by day. And even at work, I made test comparisons because I had a lot of free times in between job tasks, you know. I was the biggest and craziest tester in the world, probably the craziest one, you know. And I was so dedicated in the beginning that I said, okay, I'm gonna spend 30 days. I have a mix. I'm gonna apply on this vocal or this instrument all compressors I can find. I'm gonna check all settings, all possible levels, all possible amount of compression, all possible combinations of settings. In exhausting way, I will compare all these compressors. I will find the best one with the best settings, and that's it. It will be my best compressor. I will always use it. It will be the best one. I spent 1 month. I found that compressor. I was happy. I wrote down in my notes, this is the compressor and this is the best settings. Try to guess what happened on the mix number 2. I started working on the other song and that compressor sucked. I was like, oh, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I didn't compare all those compressors properly. I repeated the test on the second mix. And I found the other compressor with the first settings. I found the other compressor with its own settings which sound better. And I said, probably I made a mistake. This is the best compressor and this is its best settings and I should always use it like this. And then third mix came. Try to guess which compressor was the best on the third mix, right? So what I'm saying, instead of just trying to chase after the best plugin with the best settings, or some famous audio engineer, hey, John Doe, tell me please, what is the best compressor and what's the best settings? And you just checking every new plugin saying like, oh, maybe this plugin will sound better, maybe this plugin will sound better. Instead of this, you should have knowledge and apply compressors not based on what is the best one, but what is the most suitable one. And settings of it should not be constant. This like preset approach works to some extent. Sometimes actually it works, sometimes it's not. Instead, you should be the best audio engineer just to define the best compressor and the best settings for particular situation in particular mix. How to buy any full lesson, read the description and in the first pinned comment.